Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm with Michele Darling today. She's a sound designer, composer, producer, educator, and she's the chair of the EPD department at Berklee College of Music. Thanks for taking the time out to do this interview, Michele. I appreciate it. You've been the chair now for almost 2 years. What has that experience been like?
It's gone very fast. And hello, by the way. And thank you for having me and sitting down with me to have a chat. The EPD chair position has been thrilling, exciting, getting to work with so many really incredible people, from faculty just having so much talent and knowledge that I just thank every day that I am able to work with these people, because it's endless learning that I'm lucky enough to get to do. And then the students, such as yourself, just meeting some incredible people and, seeing you all grow and also teach us. We learn from students too. And so it's a pretty exciting position to be in, to see it all kind of happening at EPD, from faculty bringing their knowledge base to students, just being passionate and engaged in stuff and learning, and all of us getting our minds blown from time to time about new technologies and creativity and the things that we can do. So that's been good. And other times too, it's it is a lot of looking at the future and seeing what do students need 4 years from now. When you enter EPD, what are you going to need by the time that you leave Berklee? And how do we prepare you for jobs and the creativity and the tools that are out there, and how to ask the right questions and be curious and learn technology. And we always say we teach you how to learn so that you can be ready for whatever the industry is, whatever the direction the industry is going with the tools and with the artistry and the work that's out there, and how do you, go into those industries, from music production, different kinds of music genres, to, sound for new platforms like video games or virtual reality or whatever the platforms will become. How do we prepare you? And so it's really exciting and challenging too, because we just don't know the answer to that really. So hopefully that gave you an overview though of of the chair job, and it's a pretty engaging job to have.
You initially started playing flute. That was your entry into music. What was that experience like? And do you remember what kind of repertoire you were playing back then?
Yes. I started playing flute when I was 11. And I grew up in Indiana, and so you would play in concert bands and marching bands and orchestras. And so all kinds of classical repertoire and marching band repertoire. And it was a great outlet. I loved practicing. I ended up going to Indiana School of Music as a flute principal, and it was very challenging music school. I decided, or I would say one of the things I loved about it was the practice. So, and you have to practice a lot in music school in your instrument, and that means every day running your scales and arpeggios, and you're practicing your breath support and making sure your embouchure is very, very controlled. And I think that what I miss about playing is that practice, because it was really meditative, because you have to get in that mindset where you're just practicing kind of the same things every day, but you're pushing yourself a little bit each time. And it's and then the breathing and the physical connection to the instrument was really my favorite part of it. But then the repertoire, everything, from Bach to Prokofiev, or to there's so much music that from different eras, time periods that you could play from classical, Baroque, classical to modern, new age or new kind of music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did I answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Do you remember? So maybe this is around the 80s or 70s or 80s, around that.
So it would
90s. Maybe.
It would have been the late 80s to early 90s.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, do you remember hearing any electroacoustic music?
There was a lot of electroacoustic music going on. I remember at Indiana there would be some. We would call it new music. I can't even remember exact composers right now, but just more interactive, even just with lighting and people exploring different kinds of classical instruments with different kinds of technology. This might be veering away from your question a little bit, but what I was really interested in was electronic music artists that I would hear more from DJs in club environments, but also there was MTV was a big influence to me, which doesn't really exist as is anymore, but you would go to listen to these music videos, which essentially turned into kind of, you'd see some on YouTube, you see these music videos, but I would hear these bands and they looked so cool and they sounded, I didn't recognize the sounds, the synthesizers, and just some of the music was kind of brooding or dark or fun or, just really creative stuff, and that was just filling my head when I wasn't playing flute and studying classical music. And there was a record station near where my dorm was, and so a lot of us would get radio shows, and that's when we could start to play what was called underground music. At the time, a lot of the bands were from Europe, and we would get extra special records and vinyl from there, and it really just changed my life as far as why can't we study that kind of music in a music school. So I had to kind of do it on the side. And so Indiana had an electronic music room that was in the back of the Opera House with the Professor Jeff Haas, and he taught digital performer and tape splicing and what synthesis was. And so my friends and I really got into that and just started to think, wow, this is a whole different world, but you couldn't really major in it at that time, and then I graduated, and then it was like, well, I've got this flute degree. I had studied a minor in a specialization in film theory, and I was like, what do you do with that? And that started me on a long road to try to figure out what I was good at and what it was possible with technology, with what I knew already versus like what other kind of education would I need. And so that is I guess the story of just classical to exploring all kinds of electronic music that makes you happy, that really kind of expands your mind and say, I want more of that. It wasn't the electroacoustic question that you
Well,
had.
no, that was you didn't veer off my question at all, because that's what I wanted you to get at.
Okay.
Because I too heard all this academic electroacoustic music, but that wasn't my thing. It was always the EDM, which is, I guess, like the equivalent, right?
Right.
In your case.
Yeah.
So I really relate with what you just said.
I didn't even know that. I'm so glad we're chatting because I
Yeah.
didn't know that you like great.
I think, you're probably the first EPD person with whom I share this quote-unquote classical connection. And then, both of us were like, actually, I prefer some of the more underground stuff. So no, you answered my next question. So
Okay.
so that's good. That's good for sure. So you said you went to Indiana University. I'm guessing that was in Bloomington. So you later studied at NYU, and I'm guessing Bloomington is a smaller town than say Manhattan or whatever. How would you contrast living in those smaller cities or larger cities? What has your experience been like, just maybe professionally or artistically, academically?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think is, learning about different places that you might want to live, and, as your career is taking off in different chapters in your life, like what kind of place is good to live. I grew up in a somewhat smaller town, not very small, but, small enough, and lived in Bloomington. And the beautiful thing about those places are you can sometimes have bigger spaces to live in, and you can have maybe a front porch, and you kind of know people around the town, and you can see them in the grocery store, and there's like a kind of sense of community that way. But maybe like Bloomington, there's just enough people there that you don't know so that you can still make new friends. And I think for me, there wasn't a lot of industry there for electronic music. And even if I had stayed a flute player, there weren't a lot of jobs either. So I think I had to branch out. But also I think I had, a drive to explore the world more and what it was like to live in different cities. So I moved to New Orleans, and then I moved to Chicago. And I ultimately found a bit more industry in Chicago, but, started in a shipping department of a television post-production place, a studio, and I was able to sort of learn some of the technology and start to work on some TV shows as an assistant editor. Kind of, it was really interesting to find a place. Like I had said, I had studied some film theory, so I was like, maybe TV music. Like, why couldn't I write for that? And but yeah, I just was finding anything that I could, and I ended up meeting my husband there, because he's in the video, but he's into works in video, but television and that sort of thing. But I started to realize that what I really wanted to do, and that was electronic music, and if that included writing music for television, film, or video games, that would be great. And so that's when I ended up applying for NYU grad school, right? So why I'm telling you all this is that New Orleans and Chicago helped me build up to larger cities. And then by the time I had left Chicago, I was pretty ready for New York. And to be a little bit more street smart, to watch where I'm going, to be safe with my bag, and to keep your eyes around and who's there. And but the thing that I loved, I realized that I like a big playground, meaning a big city, because you're never it's like so much stimuli, external stimuli. There's always something to do. There's always people to meet, and it almost felt like in New York, anything was possible. So I lived there for a long time.
Earlier on in our chat, you mentioned how there's so many different things happening in EPD, which is actually very mind-blowing. I don't think I could think of another major, at least at Berkeley, probably anywhere else, where you have so many different things happening. But on top of that, this electronic music curriculum, I guess you can call it vaguely, it's always constantly updating. So I've never had a course where my professor walked in and said, oh, hey, there's a new Max object we can look at. They released it last week. It's not something that really happens in a lot of music education. Like, to give you, I'm sure you can relate to this. You were playing flute repertoire that was hundreds of years old. I was studying contemporary music that was a few decades old. So that's what contemporary means. But when it's electronic music, like you could talk about artists from now, or you could talk about technology that's that was just a week old or something like that. Or you could even, very pertinently talk about technologies of the future even. So how do you manage dealing with this kind of curriculum where it's not really safe in a sense? It's always constantly evolving, so dynamic. What has your experience been like trying to navigate this thing?
That's a great question. I think, for one, being a technologist and a music technologist is always, on some level, there's always going to be pivots. You're always going to have to learn stuff, things. In my particular position, have good faculty. Because you can't be, none of us can be experts at everything. We can't know everything, but you can be stronger in a community. So that's the beautiful thing, wherever you are, to have a community of people around you. Sometimes it could be online, but if it's around you in physical, that go to the person that's really good at software if you're not, or and see what's new and what they're excited about, and go to if you're not really into doing synthesis or sound design, go use those folks to see what they're excited about, but constantly learning. You'll never be bored in this field because it's always something new. But I think the other thing is to understand that you will never know everything. You can't keep up. I can't keep up. None of us can. We can keep up with a lot of things. And so the beauty of it is that you can set some, for curriculum-wise, you can set some foundational kind of stuff that is in the curriculum, and it's in the teaching outline for teachers. But they also are so good at what they do that if they do notice something that's updated that they want to share with the class, there's room for them to come in and say, hey, this lesson, the foundation's still there, but I can use this new tool to show it.
Right.
And so I think that relying on faculty and giving them that freedom to do it is important. Of course, there's some things that we have to stick to, and so I guess there's short-term stuff that just pop up like this. Oh, this new Max object, let me show you how that's relevant to this subject. And it's really cool. You should try it out because you have access to it. I think is a really beautiful thing that happens because the faculty are so good at what they do. If it's a larger thing, like the curriculum needs to change and it's, that tool's not relevant anymore, then we have to sit down as a faculty and say, okay, what is the new tool that's important and what's going to maybe last a long time, and that there can be a lot that goes into those kinds of decisions, and to adjust the core class curriculum that several teachers teach. That, and then it takes some question asking, is this still our mission, this kind of topic, and which tool is the best now. And stuff. So we always have curriculum meetings. I think we will always have to.
That's fun. I appreciate you saying that you need a certain kind of faculty member to be able to handle this rapidly changing thing. So I definitely appreciate that in all the professors I've had. In a way, well, it's not subjective. I think it is true to say that EPD is the most novel out of all of the other majors. It's constantly updating. Maybe music therapy could parallel with it because you have new research coming up all the time and things like this. But despite this youngness of EPD, I'm sure you still borrow things from other music pedagogical philosophies. So for instance, if you're teaching an EDI instrument, you don't need to start from scratch. You could probably look to the performance department and go off the models of practicing your scales, practicing arpeggios, and let's now perform a song. So that's, in a way, the technology is new, but the concept behind it is still kind of old and tried and tested. So I'm curious, do you find yourself borrowing certain educational concepts from some of these older pedagogies?
That's a great question. I think so. I guess it depends on what class you're talking about, but I think there's some ways of teaching and learning that you can take really from any model. And I'm talking about like what you're doing in class and how you're presenting the information to students. I think that all can be, we can learn a lot from, past, what is good teaching and that I think we do apply. That might be like how you start class and how you get students' attention and the kind of materials you're using. And then, if you have to lecture, then how are you giving people hands-on so that they retain it, or how are you making students repeat information? So I think, the classes are kind of set up in ways that are pretty typical for teaching and learning. It's just that we're applying, audio theory or synthesis foundations, or control systems like MIDI and CV. We're applying those subjects into like a teaching model that has existed for a while, but the subjects are changing within it.
Right.
So if you're talking then about new subjects, I think you would, like new tools, you would go and say like what's important about this tool and what are the fundamentals and do they apply to some of the fundamentals that are important. And then, bringing the new tools in and seeing like what new stuff it might add, and getting the student to kind of explore that with you, or even explore themselves and come back and tell you what they found. There's all kinds of ways to sort of borrow teaching techniques. But if you're talking about EDI, which you mentioned, which that's electronic digital instrument. It's a principal instrument here at Berkeley that we manage that program and the major. And it's the digital instruments like either synthesizers or grid controllers with a computer at the center. Usually it's Ableton Live, we require that. And a new principal instrument is a big deal. It just hasn't happened for many, many years. But if you talk to, any of the other departments, they've spent years and decades even figuring out how to best teach students those instruments. And that means the pedagogy around it, the practice around it, the ergonomics, the way to avoid carpal tunnel syndrome with the way you play. And then with digital instruments, it's also learning the fundamentals of music, learning how to be a performer, to know your instrument really well, like you would with flute, or you would with guitar or violin or bass or whatever instrument. Know your instrument so well that you can, just be virtuosic as you play, but you also have to know the technology, where your sounds are coming from, in a lot of cases making your own sounds or making your own songs to play. So it's a whole world of development, really, that we're really just on the forefront of. And we can take from, like let's say a piano or even a drum, fundamentals book. We do a little bit of that, but not much. But I think it's time for us to write our own, but at the same time, there's like many approaches. There's not just one school of thought. There's not just one school of thought on how to finger drum, for instance. Which is just kind of mind-blowing. There's some finger drummers out there that are laying out their grid controllers like push or MPCs or they're really like doing it their own way. And so who's right? But at the same time you could find that different people play flute in a different way. But it's pretty exciting to have this opportunity. But it's challenging. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I always thought the contrast between like the newer curriculum and the older curriculum, it was just interesting to me. So the example I always thought of was in my composition studies, like if you were to write a Bach style counterpoint thing, there's a very tried and tested and well established method for doing that. You know, you work up with counterpoint and things like this. But then it's not obvious that you're going to get a unique result out of it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you give the students some freedom, because you know the curriculum is so new and there's maybe like a lack of standardized agreement or something like that, then the student might find their own approach, and then they end up doing something creative and fresh and new.
That's nice.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting how those things happen.
Yeah. Maybe it's good to just take away the rules. It's good to know the rules.
Yeah.
But then maybe taking them away is what's going to bring out more creativity or create new music of our time or new genres or, new opportunities for you to explore, different kind of sounds and different kind of feels. And so I think that EPD is really about exploring and experimentation. That's what we're hoping. That you feel like it's a playground for you to try out things and
Cool. So I think we're doing well on time.
Oh, good. Have we been through all your questions?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So it's funny, like I typically live stream these, so I'm not used to like
Oh.
breaking character. It's recording right now. It's not
Oh,
live
okay.
streaming.
Okay.
So it's
I'm not a big live streamer.
okay. Yeah. So it worked out well.
Yeah.
You've very memorably mentioned to I'm sure many EPD majors, but also me, that you have to be very adaptable in this industry because it's always in a flux. What kind of advice would you give to people who graduate from this major, and why do you think being adaptable? I don't know what the word is anymore. Is it adaptable or adaptive or?
I think it's. I think either one might
Okay.
work.
Yeah.
Adaptable.
Maybe adaptable. Yeah, we'll go with adaptable. So, yeah.
Well, English isn't our, it's our forte. Our forte is music and technology. So, what advice? The question was, what advice would I give you as you're going out into the different industries? I would say a few things. Keep doing what you learn to do here. And if you didn't go here, what does that mean? It means, keep being a good person. Keep finding more about who you are. I think the more that you spend time knowing and understanding who you are and what you want to do, the more unique you become. And that's when you start to stand out as being the person that needs to be hired because you're the one who could do that thing,
Yeah.
But it's not an easy one. I think I started with the hardest because that takes time, right? And, we'll spend our lives trying to get to know ourselves better. But you've already done so much here, which is that you've proven that you can go through a college like Berkeley. I mean, it's not an easy program you've just been through. It's, you had to audition to get in. You had to show some skill to get in. And then you had to prove time and time again that you're able to turn in projects and be in class and be responsible, and all of that, is really a good lesson for you being professional. At the same time, you've learned how to meet people and to talk to people, your classmates and your professors, and those are people you're going to see out there in the industry. Not everyone, but you'll make connections. But just like you made them here, you have to continue doing that out in the world. Right. And the way that you do that is through your passions and through your knowledge base and the things that you want to do, like producing music or composing, or working on sound for video games or film composing or whatever your area you're choosing, or new product design, plugins design, whatever you choose. But you've already got the skills to do that. You've been doing that here already. And Berkeley has a great network out there. And I always say, just be as kind, be a great hang, enjoy being around people and what you do, and they're going to really want to work with you, So I think all of those things are really important. Just know that you can do it. Just keep doing what you're doing and keep learning. Be curious, because, I think anybody in the industry, they like to hire people they enjoy working with. They don't want anybody who's too arrogant. They want people that love to learn and can get things done and will turn things in and be reliable and also enjoy the job while they're, so I think all of those things are really important. The other important part is just you make sure you have a professional outlook. Like, you need to go through your website and your social media and make sure that your look and feel and information evolves from looking like a student. And so it's like wonderful. We do need to be really like excited and proud, and it's so great to graduate from this degree. It's an incredible accomplishment. But change your wording from current Berkeley student, to sound designer or composer or whatever it is. Like, you should start to be what you want to be on the social media. And then your social media posts do help these days. They're like a business card. So you want to make sure that you're looking like a professional rather than, than a student. Like, here are my, friend, which is wonderful. Here are my friends in the cafeteria or whatever, and that's such a beautiful thing. But think about, like, if you want to get hired somewhere, what they're going to want to see. They're going to want to see you doing shows or releases or some things that you've worked on, or see pictures of you in the studio, or see the professional side of you. So I think that's also the other piece of advice I would give, is make sure you start making that transition as well. And I could go on. This is really, I'm passionate about this question. Did anything come up for you, or?
I mean, nothing in particular. I think, personally, I feel like that's something I have to work on, like being more presentable in terms of a professional setting, kind of working on that. But no, I think I appreciate you sharing that advice. I know you've often engaged with the issue of women and technology. How has that situation evolved over your career?
Well, that's a great question, and there's no necessarily one way to ask those questions. I think the reality is that women and women identified people have been in a minority in the music technology industries, and it has maybe been a little bit more apparent. Those issues have been a little more apparent these days in some areas and not in other areas. It hasn't been evolving as much as I think some of us would like to see. I always think that you have to see it to be it. I know that phrase has been around quite a lot, but in order to become something or feel like you can, it does help to see somebody in that place, to say, hey, that's me. If they did it, maybe I can do it too. I think there's a lot of power in that. So I always felt that myself, I've always been usually the only woman in the room. Occasionally there were other women, but generally I was the only one. And coming to terms with that is something that each of us have to do. Either you decide, hey, this isn't for me because I don't feel comfortable, or to the other point where, hey, it doesn't bother me. In fact, I'm completely comfortable with that, and I don't need to talk about it. It's still like every person has to decide, what they're comfortable with. And so we've done everything from, making sure that they're safe spaces, or, I think that term has, is an interesting term, safe spaces, but at least spaces where they are sort of women and women identified and women friendly spaces where more women that are either interested or already doing the work can meet each other. Because that's one of the issues, is that also there are women doing music technology kind of fields, but they don't also know each other. Sometimes they're not running into each other in classes, let's say, or even in the industry, they're not necessarily running into each other at the studios. So having these spaces where, you call women together can feel really good and a little beautiful as well, because just because there might be a different kind of camaraderie that they're not seeing in the daily work. There's even, especially when you're getting started, I think, and you're the only one in the room. That could be anything. Any way you identify. If you feel like you're the only one, it can be intimidating, especially if you are learning and you can even be afraid to ask questions that you might have, so you can easily feel not supported and that sort of thing. So I think having these spaces where, minority groups can get together, such as women, it can be really helpful for their camaraderie, for their confidence building, just friendship, to be able to share interests, with people that are sort of like you, as well as, offer support if, you happen to be having a challenge and don't have a lot of people to talk to about it. It's, those spaces are really good. There's something else, too, that I really felt like I wanted to support women, but I also recognized that I had to, if I was going to help with the situation, I had to have a seat at the table. Not in the safe spaces, but in the spaces with all the men. And I think that one goes back to the see it to be it. Like, if a young woman could see a woman recording engineer, a woman sound designer, a woman electronic music performer, a woman chair of EPD, the see it to be it is like, oh, I see that. She's doing it. Maybe that's something I could do too. And so I think that becoming, if it is a passion for you, you need community, you need support. And then if you want to continue, you could either stay in the safe spaces, but also you could, work on how to, feel more comfortable, or create spaces around you that that sort of getting you to the point where you feel confident enough to sit in that space and own it. And I think that does come with time. Like, I definitely struggled with that in the beginning when I was learning this stuff, and had those thoughts like, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I'm capable. I don't know if I'll be accepted. And there's just another point that turned for me, that I just got, I don't know if it was angry so much as I'm just like, I'm doing this. I don't care what anybody thinks, and I don't care if I'm uncomfortable. And if, somebody tells me that I don't deserve to be there, that's on them. That's the problem with them, not me. And so that took a while to get to that point. And then I just said, I really need to get good at the technology. I want to learn this stuff. I want to get good at it. And I want one of those seats where I'm, can speak to, men and be in a room, be the only woman, and actually be able to do this stuff really well. And then I'm not going to worry about any question about my being there. Okay, sorry.
No,
About that one.
no, that's it's all good. I really appreciate that because I feel like my whole understanding of this issue has changed over time, and I think I may have been ignorant about it or distanced myself from it. Maybe not, aggressively, but just more subconsciously. Not just because of my gender, but maybe also because of the generation I was born in. In a way, I would hope that people from my generation and people from later generations have seen less obvious misogyny. So in a way, we might be tempted to feel like, oh, it's not a big deal. But that's just being ignorant of this whole history of women in tech. And I looked it up recently. Like, even in non-music related fields and STEM related fields, women often feel like they may not want to do it because they'll be mistreated in those men-dominated spaces, or like you said, like issues with confidence, or not having any role models to look up to. I think it's super valuable. What would you tell those kinds of, let's say, younger people who have this subtle reluctance to engage with these more social issues because they think it's all about learning the skills and you don't have to worry about the social stuff? But I guess that's just ignorant, and it's not looking at the whole picture in a holistic way. How would you maybe encourage them to think about some of these larger issues?
That's a big question. I think, I love what you're doing, which is asking the questions. I mean, we all have bias, but we don't see those biases because everything usually is, if it's fine for you, why think there's a problem, And I think the important thing to do is to ask the questions and maybe be mindful of the fact, especially if there's a token kind of person in the room. Are they having the same experience as you? I think that comes with a lot of training and thought, to be able to be aware of that. And that could be, not just gender, but it could also be racial, just understanding that people have different experiences in you, and they might be having a very different impression of where you are, what you're doing, the job you're doing, or the community you're involved in. So I think it's just important to maybe to ask questions and to listen, to see. And you really don't know until you talk to a person about what they're experiencing, right? Even just in EPD, I've talked to some women, for instance. It's like, wow, I really want to have a women's group because I'm not feeling, or this person said this to me and I don't feel comfortable. But then you talk to another young woman, and it's like, oh yeah, I grew up with 5 brothers, and I'm cool. You don't know until you ask, but it's important to ask the questions, right? Just to make sure that you're really, really aware and listening to what somebody might be feeling, in your community, I guess. I'm not sure if that fully answered your question, but lot to think about.
Yeah, definitely. I think the only time anyone brought this up very directly in a class, I'm going to give him a shout out, Spencer Bambrick. I remember on the very first day of class, he brought up the concept of stereotype threat, if you know what that is. It's when you, if you're prompted with some kind of a negative stereotype about some aspect of your identity, then you're bound to perform worse. So let's say you give 2 groups of people tests, but you tell one group beforehand, hey, by the way, women aren't good at technology or math or science. They'll perform worse than the group who wasn't told anything of that nature.
I've heard this theory before. I'm
yeah.
so glad you brought that up. Yeah.
So I'm glad
Yeah.
that he brought it up, and I wish people were more aware of this thing. I think it's kind of innocent to think, oh, it's just my passion and it's just like my talent and that's it. The psychology or the social aspect of things, they don't matter, but they do. It matters what you've been told, and so I'm glad you brought it up. Any more thoughts on this, maybe?
Well,
You don't have to, but it's just.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I think we have a ways to go still, but it's, I think the easy route is to just ignore it, which I think we have in previous generations. And I think that's the great thing about your generation and in younger generations. It's like, no, let's talk about this kind of stuff. So let's try to understand. I think on some level, it's really hard to be in another person's shoes. But if we can culturally get to the point where we're thinking, I know that I'm not in your shoes, so I'm not going to assume anything. But how is it going for you? How are things? What's your experience like? What kind of music do you like? Or I don't know. Just trying to understand that people are deeper than maybe we initially assume. Yeah.
I'm probably not going to keep this portion of it in. No, what I'm just about to say.
Oh, okay.
The opposite of stereotype threat is this thing called stereotype promise. So if you tell someone, for instance, if you tell someone, oh, Indian people are very good at technology, they'll just end up performing better because it ends up like affirming the stereotype. So it's funny.
You should
but
do is you should have a class where everybody is so good at technology. You're all going to do super well. I wonder if it would be really well.
Possibly,
because
right?
Of that positivity.
Well, those are all the formal questions I have, but we're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
We have I didn't tell you about this, but we have a fun activity.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you some logos, and you can either give me a rapid response. I know it's like 5-5, 5-7 right now, so depending on how much time we have. There's 4 of these.
Oh, okay.
Feel free to share whatever comes to your mind.
I'm
just gonna hand this over to you.
It's like a psychological test or what?
Let's see. First one.
I mean, it's a software. Ableton Live.
What's your relationship to it? How do you?
To Live?
Maybe like curriculum-wise, what is it?
If it is truly the software.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a long relationship with Live, which I started with, I think it was version maybe 1, but I think 4. Live 4.
Oh, okay.
So I've been with it a long time. I was part of one of the, I would say maybe early schools of teaching Live, but I used to play shows with it, and it would crash sometimes back in the day. But yeah, it really took off. And it was so wild when it took off and just became a huge DAW. And I think of it as community because they did really well with building community and artists and creativity. And it was a game changer because it would, you couldn't really perform electronic music through a DAW so well. Like this was really a game changer for performant and electronic musicians. So it just seems amazing that they were also so personable and that sort of thing. And I eventually ended up being a sound designer for them for a couple of years. It was around the Live 10 time period and shortly after. And that was also felt really good because I had gotten to a point in my career that I felt like Live to me was sort of the best tool that was out there for this sort of thing. So it was kind of, it felt like a really big deal, and I was honored to be with those incredible sound designers that work for Ableton. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
And then, of course, teaching it here,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. I feel like EPD is a very Ableton Live oriented
Yeah.
department for the most part.
It's definitely gotten there more, yeah, these days.
Cool. We can
Okay,
move on to the next one.
that was a big, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Max 8, yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say that's cycling 74.
Yeah.
I did not learn Max well when I was coming up. I think that EPD teaches Max in a really good way.
Yeah.
Almost so much that I wish that I had taken it over again. But I definitely had it in school. I think it's an incredible tool. I mean, the Cycling 74 folks, David Ziccarelli, and they're just, I think, kind of geniuses, you know.
Yeah.
And the environment is so creative. It's really incredible what you can do with the interactivity, especially. You can really create just about anything you could come up with. You know, I think you could just make a mixer with it or do something kind of expected, or you can, I feel like somebody told me that they, put sensors on a horse and was able to get like data from there to have Max, do something else or something. It's just like the sky is the limit. So I think it's a fantastic, coding environment to learn object-oriented coding so that you don't, especially it's like a environment, as long as you can think of what you want to do, it's got a lot of potential. I think it can be challenging for people because, especially if they don't have a lot of open-ended or coding kind of language, because it's different with, I think, a little bit with audio technology, which is here's the fundamentals of sound, and we can push the limits and learn the tools. But when you get to Max, it's like you can create whatever you want. What do you want to create? And it can be daunting unless you have the right kind of teacher and the right approach to get you to understand what it does and then to start to be more creative with it. It's a different kind of thing. Yeah, that's my experience with Max.
Cool. I just remembered the next one.
Okay. That is ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Oh wow, good one. I'm a huge fan, honestly. I'm very aware of all the issues as far as like our humanity and taking away our skill sets. I think it's problematic in that we don't know where the data sets are from. But I think I am really pushing, I'm really supporting the humanity and the learning yourselves instead of using ChatGPT to do everything for you.
Right.
It's not always right, too. On a personal note, I use it creatively to help me with grammar, writing. I've been doing some writing, and I enjoy like telling it a story, and it tells me what it thinks back, and it's kind of like a creative partner in a way.
Right.
But I don't want to lose that creative side of my own, but I will use it to help me do more of my voice. Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, I saved the best one for last.
Okay, I'm going to do this one quick.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
FL Studio.
Oh.
Because of the high schoolers and stuff.
Oh, yeah. They really, I guess in our summer program, I think the majority of them are using FL Studio.
Yeah.
It used to be Fruity Loops, and it got a lot more serious. It got a lot more professional. I'd say like probably one of the most popular DAWs out there, and I think especially culturally, a lot of young people are using it. I think the cost of it is part of it, the economics of it, but also it's easily accessible to them, and also it's good at beat making, which a lot of young people are doing. Yeah, we're gonna start to teach it here in with Rashab.
Oh yeah.
In one level of it, and just to sort of explore, is that a DAW that we should be, if people know it already, should they be able to continue with it at Berkeley? It's something to think about. A lot of us think you should know a lot of different DAWs, that producers should know different DAWs to be able to work back and forth. Of course, there's probably one or two that we'll be better at, but yeah, I think FL is a pretty cool option, and it's great at making beats. The grid for beat making is really cool, and there's some other features in sound design that's really awesome too. Yeah, cool. But probably won't switch over completely.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Michelle, where can people find you on the internet?
I am on Instagram as mdarlingsound.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for the conversation, Michelle.
Thank you.
I will
so
stop
much.